What's up, everybody? What's up, Dog Nation? This is Jeff Sentell, and we've got a special kind of a neighborhood, like show must go on type thing. It is Masters Week, and guys, this is the only time you'll ever see Jeff in like non-Dog Nation themed apparel. Now, I want to make sure I'm going to know my audience here. I'm going to be true interaction here. Welcome to Before the Hedges. It's not before the Masters, but I want to get how many people get the t-shirt. Hope everybody gets the t-shirt. Hello, friends, everybody. It is another edition of Before the Hedges brought to you by Kroger. It's Wednesday night. What does that mean? Well, that means we go around the block, chop it up. We talk about the latest in Georgia Bulldogs football recruiting. Jay Swain, you're the first one that shows up on my Restream feed. Antonio Jones, Rodney White, Tom Lavelle, Sonia Prescott, Bob Page, Eddie Burleson, Rhett Womack. How you doing, Rhett? Yeah, Tom Lavelle, you get it. But like, I got this t-shirt and I'm like, man, I'm going to wear that. I'm going to wear that for Hedges because especially Part 3 contest was today. Feel free, guys, unbridled, to drop your Masters predictions in the feed and in the channel tonight because, heck, man, we're all Georgians. We're all people that love that tournament. I've went to 4 or 5 of them myself. I've went to 5 of them. I've covered 5 of them myself. Love it. Everything out there. John Collins, Ralph Fogel III, Daniel Holtz, Tom Lavelle. If you got Tom Lavelle's going with that smart Brooks Koepka is healthy type pick right there. I wouldn't disagree. And, you know, we also got a lot of tension, I think is the right way to say this. A lot of tension for the Masters this time because you got a little LIV golf. You got the PGA Tour guys. You got Rory McIlroy leading the charge on one end. So it should be a different Masters for everybody. Randy Payne, Ralph Fogler, Bob Page, Randy Hall, Blake Bacallo Newman. Hope everybody's doing great tonight. You might even see a Peaches sighting tonight since we're doing a lot of this from our home office. But guys, the show must go on. This is a special throwback home studio edition of Before the Hedges brought to you by Kroger. I'm Jeff Sentell, and we're going to talk a lot about Georgia football recruiting for the next 30, 45 minutes or so. We've got topics, we've got show, we've got graphics. So let's talk about it right now. What do we start out with? We start out with the Big 5. Those are the 5 kind of big things we talk about with Georgia football recruiting that are on my mind right now in terms of what's going on with the Dogs on the recruiting trail. Yes, they're still the number one. Recruiting class in the nation. 2024, 2025. And the first thing we'll talk about is a busy week with 5 stars in Athens. If we're kind of rolling the page back, these are all unofficial visits. Official visits, the first big ones won't come till G-Day weekend. That's Aaron Butler, the talented wide receiver out of California. You got a lot to talk to you guys about him eventually. But this has been a busy week, last 4 or 5 days for 2024 unofficials. 5-star Edric Houston, spoke to him today. He was in town yesterday. KJ Bolden, the 5-star, also out of Buford High School. He is in town tomorrow. Sammy Brown was in over the weekend. Tight end commitment Landon Thomas was in over the weekend. Dylan Stewart, the 5-star edge. It's really feeling a lot like a Georgia, Ohio State mano-a-mano steel cage match again, kind of like the way it was with Damon Wilson for Dylan Stewart. That's the number 1 prospect in the country, according to On3. And, for Sammy, it feels like Georgia, Clemson. They have a lot of both things in common. Edric Houston has some other schools in the mix there. KJ Bolden just took a big 2-day visit to Florida State. That was the school, really quick. One of the things I think I haven't done a lot because maybe it hasn't been the time for it yet is I really hadn't talked to you guys a whole lot about KJ Bolden. I remember a long, long time ago when I was sitting there and the first time I noticed KJ Bolden, I think he was a freshman at Buford. And I was like, hey, dude, and I could tell he was already running 10.7s, 10.8s, and his recruiting was going to get crazy. And I said, let's project 3 or 4 years from now. What's the school you kind of would most likely want to go to? And that was Florida State. So that was very interesting how he spent the last couple of days there with Florida State. Florida State's gotten a lot better. If you look at it, those visits over the past week, those are kind of like just feeling things out. Bigger visits are to come. more important visits are to come. But really, what those visits allowed a lot of these key targets to do, and there's one commit there in terms of Landon Thomas, is it allowed the guys to see what Georgia practice is like. Folks, universally, what I've learned from recruits, they can go visit one school, they can go visit another, but when they check out the dogs and the way they practice and the way they get after it, that's kind of how they know when they leave Athens, figuring out that, yeah, that's why those guys win. And there's something Kirby Smart says to every recruit when he keeps it real is he says, man, I'm going to try to pull the very best out of you. If you don't bring your very best to the table each and every day, then you probably shouldn't be here. This is probably not the place for you. There's going to be guys that you're going to have to in your way that you're going to have to compete with and earn your spot and earn your time. And there's going to be guys that come in after you the same way like you are. And if you don't feel like you want to be challenged and bring out your best football every day, then Georgia's probably not the place for you. You're not going to grab a starting spot and coast until the weekends or whatever. You're just going to try to get better and find your best football every day. And this was a big culture week for Georgia with a lot of 5 stars in Athens. Something to think about there because, there'll be more prospects on the way. But I think that's becoming really what spring practice is for the dogs, not just get better on the field, but as far as a recruiting element, what the young men and their families see is like, and them dogs turn it loose, they turn it up, and they get after it at practice. And that's how everybody realizes that's why the dogs win in the fall. Number 2, guys, hopefully I'm trying to keep up with a lot of questions. Number 2 on our big 5 right now is we're talking about, Scotty Barnes, Jerry Dogs fan. Jerry Dogs fan. That's a pretty good take right there. That's kind of been the thing for a while. But number 2, Clarence Dawson. That's right. Exactly. But number 2 is, yes, he's a 2025 prospect, but for me and the way I kind of cover the dogs in recruiting, I try to bring a lot of perspective to my work. And, for me, Georgia getting Micah DeBose back in Athens this past weekend was pretty big. He's the 2025 offensive line commitment. Now, he's from Alabama, and everybody always thinks like, oh, Micah is from Mobile, and eventually if Auburn or especially Alabama really come after him hard, then that's likely going to be hard for the Georgia Bulldogs to hold on to it. And I would just say not so fast, my friend. Maybe that was hard for the Georgia Bulldogs to hold on to it 2017, 2018. Not this Georgia football program, not this mountaintop Georgia football program. For starters, Micah DeBose, Micah DeBose wasn't even born in Alabama. His family's originally from Ohio, the Cleveland area. They moved down there to the Mobile area. Plays for a really stout Viger program, but he's just really digging Georgia. He's got great relationships at Georgia. They've been there for quite some time. In terms of his recruitment, it was really funny. I was talking to Micah over a year ago, or maybe early junior season, and he was visiting Georgia. And Micah was really like already feeling Georgia back then. And Micah wanted to talk to his coach. He's like, hey, and his coaches basically came to him and said, you know what, if you still feel this way about Georgia when our season's over, then that might be the time to commit. So he felt the same way. Georgia really offered way earlier than everybody else. Alabama only offered like a couple of months ago. And when he went to the national championship celebration on January the 15th, he knew he was home. He committed the next day. And meanwhile, Tennessee, LSU, Alabama, everybody's just been lighting him up. And this was a good time for him to get back to Georgia, just realize what he loves about Coach Searles, what he loves about the new Eddie Gordon, the new Coach Manley, the new assistant offensive line coach, what he loves about Kirby, what he loves about the program, and really for everything there with, the dogs in terms of that, it was major for them to get Micah DeBose back. And I asked him, I said, Micah, was this one of those visits that reinforced the commitment to Georgia or the feeling you have for Georgia? And he said, yes, it was. It was important. It was great. Showed him how much he loved the place. And he was already planning 2 unofficial visits, just in 2025. He was already planning 2 unofficial visits to Georgia in the month of April. He'll be back for G-Day. That's very important. But the thing I want to tell you, he's highly rated. It's number 3 offensive tackle in the country, number 39 overall prospect. We put together stuff that really I didn't know about Micah until maybe a couple months ago, that folks have been doing this a lot of times, long time now. I've probably talked to thousands and thousands of kids over my time covering Georgia recruiting now. And I've never quite encountered an offensive lineman, get this, a 315-pound offensive lineman, quite like Micah DeBose. Now, he does, get this, for spring sports. Are you ready for this? He does soccer. He's a goalkeeper. He's a striker. He says soccer is now his second favorite sport. He did basketball. He was the tallest center, the tallest player on the Viger basketball team. He does track. He throws the shot put. He throws the discus. He throws the javelin. And he also plays tennis for Viger High School. So he's also a football player. So we can imagine what that letter jacket is going to look like with all those patches, right? Oh, yeah. And he was starting on his high school team at right tackle for a pretty good Viger High School football team. He was starting for Viger in the 8th grade at 13 years old. He was a starting left tackle in the state championship game when he was 14 years old. Blocking a guy. I remember he blocked a guy during the COVID year that was a national top 100 prospect in the 2021 class. And that guy was going to Auburn, and Micah held his own with that. Such a bright future for Micah DeBose. And again, he visited Georgia this past weekend, that I asked his head coach, who is a longtime Viger guy, who played for Viger, now was an offensive line coach, now the head coach. And, you guys might not know this, but really, really great players like Mitch Davis went to Viger. Willie Anderson went to Viger. Remember Mitch Davis, the great Bulldog? A lot of great old-time NFL players went to Viger. And his head coach said that this most likely is the guy that's going to leave Viger and put on a gold jacket one day. Crazy. We all know what gold jacket means. Not green jacket, not like this, but a gold jacket. And I wanted to make sure you guys knew a little bit more about Micah DeBose, because, folks, the offensive line class in 2024, down. Not very good. Not as strong as some years. But in the 2025, DeBose is part of a class where they're really like 8 or 9 tackles. We saw Mason Short out of Evans High School and the Augusta area commit to Alabama over the past week. Class of 2025 prospect. He'd been to Alabama so much that was really not a big shocker, because Alabama had really, you could tell early on. I remember talking to him prior to his sophomore year. You could really tell that Alabama had captured his heart. But you've got Juan Gaston Jr., you got Nick Brooks, you got David Sanders Jr., you got Micah DeBose. So many great offensive tackle types in the class of 2025. And Georgia already has what I consider to be a centerpiece type tackle already in terms of Micah DeBose. I thought that was very interesting. Georgia got a return visit from a really key member of the class. Another thing to think about, guys, in the middle of this, I got to make sure we thank Kroger each and every week before the Hedges is brought to you by Kroger. Guys, Kroger has sweet deals for Easter to make it special for your peeps. Peeps, get it? Kroger has savings on everything you need to fill your Easter basket, from candy to Easter dyeing kits. You got their toys and more. Visit your local Atlanta Kroger or Kroger.com/Easter. And in the middle of the show, I know we're talking about Georgia recruiting. I'm just going to quickly drop here that I think my all-time favorite Easter candy would have to be the Cadbury eggs. Now, they're doing some things now with peanut butter bunnies, with Reese's, and that is really climbing up the food chain. I always like the small little Reese's pieces in the like the Robin eggs. I like the Reese's pieces that came in a carrot. Anybody else if you have a favorite Kroger, if you have a favorite Kroger shopping memory, or where do you go to get at Kroger? What has to be in your Easter basket? Is it those peeps, those marshmallow peeps? Let us know in the comments, because I also like to know what are the cool kids having for their Easter candy these days. We've already got our Easter stuff ready. So, guys, got sidetracked. Had to thank Kroger for all they do for this program for many, many years. But now, the third thing I want to talk about in our Big Five, coming up with number 3 on the list. I guess we could say this is in honor of the par 3 contest, which was happening earlier today, which is really what our show is all about, is the running back recruiting. What does the running back recruiting look like in 2024? I think, let me do this. First of all, everybody's like, one of the things I'm going to try to do each and every week, especially in the spring, is kind of give you guys a snapshot of what all the recruiting outlook looks for Georgia position by position in 2024. And I guess I'm going to do two, excuse me. I guess I'm going to do two things at once here. I'm going to start with the quarterbacks. Here's the Georgia quarterback recruiting outlook right now for 2024. Quarterbacks, that's Dylan Raiola. All right. Now, moving on to running back. Enough said. The running back recruiting outlook. We've got another great Dog Nation graphic here to show off here. But I want to show you. There's really what I consider a handful of names that are going to be on the list here for 2024. And I think the thing we would do here is we would start obviously with the highest rated member in the class. And that's the highest rated member of the running back class is Jared Gibson. Now, Jared Gibson, you see a lot of crystal balls going his way from Texas. He's at IMG Academy. He's going to take his official visit to Georgia, that loaded first weekend in June. He's the nation's #1 running back prospect for 2024. And really with Jarek, you've got a guy that, it's always been a situation where how much does he really like Georgia? Is Georgia hat on the table, or is Georgia really a contender? I know Jarek was in Georgia for, at least an extended amount of time very recently, and he didn't get over to Athens. And that was a weekend when Dylan Raiola was there, Ryan Wingo was there, really all the King's horses and all the King's men, they were trying to get him out there. And, that makes me wonder about Georgia's chances there with a guy like Jared Gibson. The second guy on the list is Cam Davis. He just lost his 5-star status on the 24/7 Sports Composite. But that would be Cam Davis. He's out of Albany, plays for Dougherty High. He's actually a quarterback. He's actually a very great baseball player, like not a pro baseball player prospect so much like a Deuce Robinson, but a guy that will come in and be a solid college starter right away. That's what Cam Davis brings to the table. He's been committed to FSU, almost in Pierce Sperling III range territory. He's taken more visits to FSU. He recently took a visit to LSU for the Legacy Weekend. That's a big weekend for the Seminoles and their program. And he really told reporters afterward that he was even thinking about shutting it down. And that kind of leads me to believe that, man, that's going to be some tough sledding there for the class there for Georgia in terms of Cam Davis. And that takes you to the third name. This is another name that was also in Athens over the weekend, and that would be Taylor Tatum. And this guy's, depending on where you look at, but depending on kind of what service you fall for here, he's out of Texas. He had a brilliant junior season, 36 touchdowns, 9 yards per carry, something like 3,100 yards. And Georgia's a school where they're really starting to get acquainted. Is the official visit going to happen yet? I don't know if that's fully realized yet, but this is a guy, the type of back, you look at him, he's like got that upside Kenny McIntosh plus third down back upside. He can also run between the tackles. As it really starts to expand, I get the feeling that Georgia could actually take 3 running backs in this class if it is the right 3, and certain things happen with the running back room there. That's kind of just what you see happening right there. Let's see. The third name on the list is currently committed to Georgia, and that is Dwight Phillips Jr. Dwight Phillips Jr., depending on where you look at, that's kind of like the second or third, the 6th or 7th highest rated back in the 2024 class. I'm trying to do a couple of things at once here right now, but try to pull up something on my screen. But with Georgia and running backs, the third name that kind of comes to mind here was Taylor Tatum. Fourth name was Dwight Phillips. He's a UGA committee. He's the number 87 overall prospect in the country. Taylor Tatum's number 35. Cam Davis was number 32. Jared Gibson was number 23. And Phillips is a longtime commit. He's going to be a guy that's going to ride with Georgia. Last time I spoke to him, when schools asked him about his commitment, as he continues to clock 10.26 and really fast times, we showcased that with video last week on Hedges. But he says go Dogs when recruiters try to talk to him about entertaining a visit or considering their school further. He's very much a solid commitment in this class. Kevin Riley is out of Alabama. Tuscaloosa County is right outside Tuscaloosa. You guys that used to watch the old Two-A-Days show with Rush Probst and Hoover High School on MTV. Now, we're dating folks if you remember that show, but Tuscaloosa County was always that school that was the nemesis for Hoover in their playoff marches like 20 years ago, a generation ago now. Number 4 is Chauncey Bowens. And Chauncey Bowens, out of all these guys here, I guess you would say Cam Davis is 210. Jarrett Gibson's about 210. Chauncey Bowens is like 220. He's running a 10.7. That's a verified 10.8, verified track time. He's currently committed to Florida. If Georgia's going to get a big Thunder type back in this class, Chauncey Bowens would be your guy. Now, he's only a mid-tier 4-star. He's a number 210 overall prospect. That's a guy there that, Chauncey, that currently committed to Florida, but I get the feeling that there's some looking going on there by Chauncey Bowens, and almost would be a situation is depending on how much Dell McGee turned up the heat on Chauncey Bowens would depend on how big of a factor he could potentially be in Georgia's class. Last but not least is another guy that just visited. He's undecided. He's out of Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, same hometown as Dylan Raiola of all places, Christian Clark. And that's another guy that I mentioned with Taylor Tatum is a guy that could hurt you in a lot of ways. All-purpose back, real fast, make you miss, really great in space. More of that James Cook type back, more of that Kenny McIntosh type back as Georgia tries to diversify the offense, especially with having a guy like Branson Robinson, Andrew Paul, and Roderick Robinson all there on campus. Georgia needs more guys that can be those big play backs, make a guy miss back, beat a safety type back, and not just a between the tackles type back. Christian Clark. That's what, if we're giving a really honest read on here, that's what the running back options now look like for the 2024 class. Trying to keep up, trying to catch some Tom Gross saw a question from Max Ray. Went to Ohio State, didn't play much at Ohio State. He's actually now, I believe, I want to say it's a smaller school, might be like a directional Colorado school, maybe one of the Michigan schools, Central Michigan or something like Western Michigan. But he's actually a GA program analyst type coach. He's going into coaching right now. Joe Hoff, I see what's going on there. I see your question. Lots of love for Puglisi as well. I mean, in terms of, you guys were smart to correct me there. In terms of what's left for options for Georgia in 2024 class at quarterback, it was really Dylan Raiola because Pug, man, admirable young man, says he wants to be a dog, loves being a dog, and no matter who's coming. That's really what he stated for some time there. And that's a good segue. I'm glad that my thought tree led me to this point here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger, because really we've talked a lot about, we've already forecast kind of what the Georgia official visit weekend for that first weekend is going to look like, and it's gargantuan. But now that second weekend is creeping up to be the type of weekend, the second weekend in June is creeping up to be the type of weekend that others would love to have as their marquee official visit weekend during the summer. You've got Sammy Brown that second weekend. You've got Ryan Puglisi that second weekend. You got Jaden Riddell, the really top-notch, top-rated tight end out of Peculiar, Missouri, of all places. He's wanting to come in that weekend as well. So that second weekend, you see a lot of names starting to fill in there and fill up there, where Georgia's really starting to make that second weekend kind of crazy in terms of the amount of guys that are going to come into town that weekend, where it's not just going to be the first weekend in June. It's going to feel like heavy hitters. Now the second weekend in June is going to also feel like heavy hitters. You could see guys like KJ Bolden show up that second weekend in June. I don't think that's official yet or confirmed, but Sammy Brown's taking his official visit weekend to Georgia the second weekend of June. That's because the only weekend Clemson is doing official visits is the first weekend in June. So if a recruit wanted to take his official visits and make his decision over the summer, and he wanted to give Clemson a good look, that's basically the only way you can see Clemson on an official visit. And that's how some schedules will have to line up in terms of how many guys can be on campus at a certain time. That second official visit list, I think when it gets down to it, you're going to see another 2 or 3 5 stars show up that second weekend, and there's going to be about 8 or 9 top 100 prospects as well, where it's not just the first weekend in June, which we've already covered with the likes of Dylan Raiola will be there. Jermaine Smith, Jeremiah Smith should be there as well. Nikar, Ryan Wingo, lots of guys potentially in the class. We mentioned Jared Gibson, Dylan Stewart. We just mentioned him earlier in our show. Look for him to take his official visit that first weekend in June as well, where we've kind of projected could be up to like 5, not just 5. I think the number's already up to 5 right now, but the number could be up to maybe even the list, Ellis Robinson's going to be there. That's a Georgia commitment. Justin Scott, that's a 5-star. Landon Thomas, that's a 5-star. DeMarcus Riddick, that's a 5-star. Nikar, commitment. Jalen Hayward, commitment. Peyton Woodyard, commitment. Daniel Calhoun, big-time target. DeMello Jones, commitment. Marquise Easley, that's a target. Sokovia White, that's a commitment. Dwight Phillips Jr. So that list gets crazy. And then you think about the potential weekend that keeps going on. The following weekend, that's also going to be gargantuan. That, my friends, is how a back-to-back national championship program recruits in the month of June. And this is like I want to call this the last couple weeks. There's so many things that caught my eye when it comes to Georgia football recruiting. I got 3 or 4 topics I want to share with you right now, and the first of those is it really sticks out to me because there's a guy, and his name is Cam Killen-McKell, and he's gotten back on the track. He's already ran a 10.5 in the 100. He's from South Georgia. He's from Statesboro. You saw him at the Under Armour camp in Atlanta. He was working with the receivers, probably actually more of a defensive fit at a program like Georgia. DeMello Jones has told me that's the one guy, a young man out of Swainsboro, that he's really recruiting, hoping to be a dog. Cam McKell recently visited Tennessee, but that's a guy that I think that's the type of guy Georgia needs in its class, the type of guy that I think could add that element to the program. 10.5, but he's been running track. Look at that 200 time right there, what he's done so far on the track. Look what he's done so far. He's already busted out with a 10.27. A 10.27. Excuse me, not 10.27, a 10.7. And so far, and these are official kind of verified times here. 22.09 in the 200. Folks, when you get under 22 and in the 21s and the 200, you are really rolling. But first meet of the year, 10.79. That's very good for Cam McKell. Also a great basketball player. When he was playing basketball in the winter, there were 5, 6, 7 Georgia coaches there at that game watching Cam play. Now, the second one makes me think of, one of the things we do on Before the Hedges every year is every springtime when the guys, the commitments, the signees that are still in class that haven't early enrolled as mid-years, they start going on spring formals, they start going on dances, they start going on their proms. Well, I don't know if this is a prom, but check out this. This is the kicker commitment, Peyton Woodring. And I tell you what, guys, if you got a suit like that hiding in your closet, more power to you. But check this out. He was with some buddies. They were taking pictures before looked like a formal event. It might have been a early spring event at his high school in Louisiana. But check that out. Check out the flamingos there. Isn't that something right there? Check out those flamingos. Check out the neon. Check out the pink. Really cool stuff right there by Peyton. And some of his friends were wearing an all leopard. It sort of looked like a Saturday Night skit with Justin Timberlake. But also one of his friends had a all Superman suit. But look at that style busted out. Now, you want a kicker to have that much confidence in himself, that much of an air about himself where he could pull off a suit like that, checking his watch, hanging out. But, folks, he also plays baseball. Holds the state record in Louisiana for the longest field goal, 61 yards. So that's the young man that's headed to kick in Athens. And Georgia has some sort of good luck now with just really cool, really personified, really comfortable in their own skin type kickers. And that would be Peyton Woodring, of course, out of Louisiana. Another thing that caught my eye, I don't know if you saw the Dog Nation story about this. Folks, when I find stories out there that, I've been writing about Georgia recruiting since 2015 now. And, for me, the Fletcher Westphal visit was very big here. Is it going to be a visit that gets Georgia into his top 5 and earns an official visit? Well, first of all, he's 6'8", 330 pounds. Those are legitimate heights and weights there. He has an 83.5-inch wingspan from tip to tip. Amazing. But as we wrote about in Dog Nation, I hope you saw the story. He's got a Google Sheets document where it's a database with formulas where he has 17 factors: mom's rating, dad's rating, livability, could he start there early, location, current wins, past wins. But that's going to help him. He's rated 24 schools out of his 40-something offers, and he's came up with a ratio in terms of which schools are perfect for him. Crazy to think about that, what he's been able to put together. Never met a recruit that detailed. Of course, he probably could have graduated at the end of his junior year, but he's a class of 2024 prospect. He will graduate in December. He's out of Virginia. Right tackle, he's got a really strong relationship with line coach Stacy Searles as well. I thought that visit was big. His family came back together, came to see Georgia as well, and really impressive for him to get another chance to check out the Dogs. The fourth kind of thing I wanted to bring to your mind is, hope you guys remember the story of C.J. Jackson. That's an edge out of Tucker High School. Georgia's going to get his visit. It was so crazy. He was unranked with no offers at the end of his junior year. His junior tape comes out. He becomes a 4-star. He gets like 20-something offers in like 4 or 5 months. Georgia's going to be in one of his official visits. Expect to see Clemson as one of his official visits as well. But that young man who wants to parlay his academic opportunities here, wherever he goes to play college football, he wants to be a pilot. He wants to get into aviation. And that's going to take him, playing football is going to take him to his dreams. And Tucker High School has been very good to Georgia over the last few years, and hopefully the Dogs maybe can add another young man to the Tucker program as well. Guys, that has been your Big Five. Try to cover a lot of things with Georgia football recruiting. Now, you guys know we talk about each and every week. This is the 2024 class breakdown. We've been in the lab. We've got our graphics expert Casey done to come up with another cool way to look at the class breakdown, position by position on the commitments. You see 2 slides here. You see what Georgia has in terms of their really good stuff. Again, I love the way what Casey has put together for you guys each and every week. But check this out. There's 2 now. There's one that has the fancy U.S. state map, but the one that we really like is the breakdowns on offense and defense. Look at that. It almost looks like a family feud board there. Ryan Puglisi is the current quarterback commitment. The only running back commitment is 5-star Dwight Phillips. 2 wide receivers commitments, Nikar, Sokovie White. Recently committed 3-star interior offensive line or tackle, kind of a swing OL, Malachi Tolliver. And then the tight end, Landon Thomas, the 5-star who just visited and took some new pictures over the weekend in those icy white uniforms, which is, I guess, the cool kids still like the icy white uniforms as well. Currently 1 5-star, 3 4-stars, and 2 3-stars in the 2024 class in Athens. Again, that's the #1 class in the land for 2024. We also have the defensive breakdown, and again, Georgia is really stellar with that. The defensive breakdown, no DLs, no edges yet. Those are to come. The linebackers, 5-star DeMarcus Riddick, of course. Other schools, Alabama, Auburn, still coming hard after DeMarcus. He is an Alabama native. Jalen Hayward, Peyton Woodyard, 5-star Ellis Robinson, the highest ranked member of the class, 4-star athlete DeMello Jones out of Swainsboro. That's what your defensive class breakdown looks like right now. We're just trying to update these in every week. 2 5-stars, 3 4-stars, no 3-stars in the class right now. That is your Georgia class breakdown. Then our weekly snapshot where we take a look at the 2024 class as a whole. What we try to do is we peel back. Georgia has 11 commitments. It's the #1 class ranked nationally. 6 are on offense, 5 are on defense, 6 in-state, 5 out-of-state, 3 5-stars, 5 top 50 commitments, 7 top 100 commitments, 8 top 150 commitments. That's 4 on offense, 4 on defense. They have 1 offensive player among their 5 highest rated commits, but then they have 6 offensive players among their 10 highest rated commitments. 9 of those commitments right now in the SEC footprint, 2 of those commitments are beyond the SEC footprint. There you have it right there. Let's see, guys. I always get in the comment section a request for Peaches, and I see Peaches like walking by me right now in the home office studio right now. I wonder if we can get Peaches to come by. One of my lovely family members here could come by and help Peaches. Hey, Peaches, come here. Peaches, come here. Peaches, come here. Where are you going? Where are you going? Come over here. Come over here. Not under the table. Not under the table. Not under the table. That's not good. She went under the table. Anyway, sometimes actors you have these days. Guys, that right there are your food groups right there. That's what we've looked at so far with Before the Hedges for this episode. And then we've got, this is what you guys are all waiting for, the top targets. Let's check them out right now. We have updated them for this week. Everybody wants to scan to the front and see who's the new top targets. Are there any changes in the top targets? Let's take a look at it. Number 1 on our list continues to be Dylan Raiola. Number 2 is Edric Houston, who just visited Georgia recently. Earlier this week, he visited Georgia. Major target for them in the 2024 class. Khalil KJ Bolden, guy going to be there tomorrow. Number 3 on the list. I'd look for Georgia. Even though he's been to Georgia so many times, I still look for him to get an official visit. Daniel Calhoun, that's a guy that's going to be in Athens on that first weekend. Justin Green out of Mountain View High School. Just visited South Carolina, Auburn, Georgia, Clemson, LSU. Those are kind of the big boy schools that are coming after him. I'd look for Justin to take his official visit that second weekend in June. Ryan Wingo, number 6, keeps moving up. Ryan Wingo would very likely take his official visit that first weekend in June. I mean, I think it goes without saying that currently right now, Dylan Raiola only has one official visit that's scheduled right now, and that's to Georgia for the first weekend in June. Aaron Butler's actually taking his official visit to Georgia over G-Day weekend. I think he's going to be in Oregon coming up this coming weekend, and then he would visit Colorado also in April as well. He's a receiver, guys. SC had him as a cornerback commitment for a while. They really didn't know what they had in terms of Butler, but he wants to play wide receiver. Great relationship there he has with Brian McClendon at Georgia. Number 8 is Christopher C. Jones. He just took an extended visit to Florida over the last week after a 3-day visit to check out Georgia. Feels like those 2 schools are going to be right there in it with him. Mike Matthews kind of dipping a little bit. Jeremiah Smith. You see some positive comments for him recently on his social media regarding Ohio State, as Ohio State just picked up another 5-star wide receiver commitment in that class. Brian Hartline and the Huskies keep rolling on right there. Jordan Ross, and that's another name. We didn't mention him earlier in our Big 5, but Jordan Ross is also going to take his official visit to Georgia that second weekend in June. And I think 24/7 Sports has him as a 5-star prospect out of Vestavia Hills. Something to think about there right now with Jordan Ross is Alabama is not really recruiting him that hard at all. You see I get a lot of questions online. People reach out to me on the Dog Nation forum, forum.dognation.com, saying, what's up with Jordan Ross? Is that going to be a Bama guy in the end? Well, really, he's not feeling prioritized by Bama. He's feeling prioritized by Georgia, and he ran a 4.3. The officials at the Under Armour Atlanta camp came up to him while he was working out, saying they had him on laser in the 4.3s at the Atlanta camp. Folks, that's fantastic athleticism for a 6'4", 215-pound, 220-pound edge. Dylan Stewart, we mentioned him earlier. Just visited Georgia this past weekend. Georgia and Ohio State are kind of in the steel cage match for that. Likely South Carolina is also in the mix there for Dylan Stewart as well. Look for Dylan to take his official visit along with number 13, Justin Scott, as well to Justin Scott he's out of St. Ignatius in Chicago, Illinois. A lot of Notre Dame noise, but Justin will still take his official visit to Georgia from that first weekend in June as well. Each and every week, guys, I try to limit it to like 12, 13 names on the top targets, and then another 22 names for just off the list. And heavy hitters here galore here. If you're sitting here looking at this right now, going through all these lists right there, there's one name I want to talk to you guys about, and he's not on any list. But if I would have made this list, sometimes we try to get these lists done really early. If I would have made this list right now, I would have put the name Chris Cole on this list. Now, I never give you guys homework on Before the Hedges, but if you guys are watching along, I want you to do this. Chris Cole is out of Virginia. He is from the same training group. Remember Tony Grimes Jr.? That same training group really loved Georgia, really loved the way that Georgia recruited him. He is a freak athlete. He's running the hurdles. He's running the 60-meter hurdles, 6'3", 220. He's a freak. He's going to play inside at Georgia. Other schools see him as an outside linebacker. Guys, when you start looking at his film, he looks like Coy Walker, or he looks like an Isaiah Simmons type athlete right here. He is also taking his official visit to Georgia. I don't know how much that's out there right now, but he's taking his official visit to Georgia on the third weekend in June. The heavy hitters just keep coming in right there, but that's a guy that the Dogs really like. And every week I get a question about, hey, who's the one guy a lot of people are not talking about or not thinking about that would be a great addition to Georgia right now? An under the radar guy. I think Chris Cole is only got huge hands, making a lot of plays in pass coverage. But that's a guy who's only a 3-star recruit. But I don't think he's really been seen and evaluated by enough people in enough schools where that's a low-key name, under the radar name I would want you guys to keep in mind when it comes to the 2024 class. And hey, Interactive Hedges, I always try to pride ourselves on their show on this. If you're watching that film, drop in the comments how you feel about what you see about Chris Cole and his game there as well. Speaking of lots of other guys, I know I deviated a little bit, but I had Chris Cole on my mind. Chauncey Bowens, we mentioned him. Jonathan Daniels was a guy that was supposed to visit Georgia this past weekend. He did not. One of the only true offensive tackles in this class, really good-looking offensive tackles, good feet, can really move. Seems like Florida State is really trying to wedge themselves in there right now. He didn't take a visit to Athens this past weekend. Papa Afua, Ascendre Afua, got to still write about him sometime soon. Heaven Brown Schuler, he says his commitment is coming soon and his recruitment is over. Sammy Brown, we mentioned him. He just visited Georgia this past weekend. Christian Clark, Cam Coleman's now moved up to a 5-star in some respects with a lot of recruiting services after what he's done over the past couple of months. Cam Davis, CJ Jackson, Amir Jackson also visited Georgia this weekend. He had another electric visit there to Georgia. Amari Jefferson out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, visited Georgia in the last couple of weeks or so. He's currently a Tennessee baseball commitment. Jimothy Lewis, Jaquan McRoy, another guy out of Alabama that Georgia has an opportunity there with. Really big guy. Cam McKell, we mentioned him before, Killer Cam. Jaden Riddell, Caleb Olden, Jordan Seaton, Colin Simmons. That's the 5-star edge. 4-star edge, Dylan Stevenson. Jordan Thomas. That's another Coach Fran Brown, New Jersey special right there. Waiting on that one. See what happens with there. Nitro Showtime Tuggle. Showtime just visited Georgia over the last week as well. And then we mentioned Fletcher Westfall as well. Another guy we talked about him earlier in our show. He took a big visit to Georgia earlier this week as well. I think Fletcher has tried to see, he's down to his top 10, but he's trying to see, I believe, 12 schools in 7 weeks. 12 schools in 7 weeks. That's a lot. It's a really highly organized kid. I think he wants to be a business major in college. And that's the type of guy he told me he'd like to do something eventually in the hospitality industry as well. And talk about a kid that has his head on right. He's got a 3.7 unweighted GPA, a 4.25 weighted GPA. Fletcher Westfall. And I forgot to tell you the name. I love this. It is the All Sports Comparison Matrix. I believe I got that right. He's got a matrix. That's what he calls his spreadsheet with 24 schools, 17 columns. And that's how he tries to figure out what's the best school for him to go to. It's kind of crazy. Like some schools get higher ratings than others. Auburn, for example, got a high score in livability because their dorms and where the campus area where they would be at is really much closer to the football facility. So it's a much smaller world. Easier livability there, easier location there as well. Really cool to see a young person just going crazy in terms of everything else with that. Guys, let me see this. We've covered a lot of information going through. Chris Cole. Randy, I see your comment right now. This is the part of the show where I'm just going to rapid fire. I'm going to try to it's kind of like skipping rocks across 16 at Augusta National during the practice rounds. We're going to try and hit you guys with as much Q&A now as possible. Uh, couple of thoughts right there. All right, Alan, the recruiting breakdown is a little too blurry. All right, we'll work on that. Um, let me see. Let me see. Somebody, John Adams has a question about medical and nutrition. Well, it's funny. He's got when he gets to the top five, he told me he's going to add some more columns to his spreadsheet, like culture, academic rankings. So it's going to get even more detailed than everything else like there as well. Clarence Dawson with hashtag 3 for 3 in 23. Let me see. Question. Yeah, Kevin Flute, you're right. He's also very capable running back. In fact, if you want to be argumentative and really break down Sammy Brown's film, I think some of his best stuff he's put on film in high school has been as a running back for Jefferson High School. Let me see. Try to keep up with here. Oh, come on, guys. I wanted to see more. I've been sitting here hitting you guys with all this recruiting information, like bang, 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 trying to make this underneath a 50-minute show. And I wanted to go back and hear about your Easter candy. Come on, guys. I know you guys like Easter candy, right? Like give me your top two Easter candies. That's what I want to hear. Like, we go Q&A. I'm going to talk to you about all these guys that are still coming, all these guys that are still visiting and what's going on, the reading of the green. So to speak, with Tom Lavelle. Is it 100% over with formation short? I don't think it's ever 100% over for any recruit, especially at that type of thing, at this stage, especially really early. The Scotty Scheffler Champions Dinner. First of all, the hamburgers with the fries, the Scotty Scheffler style fries, the cheeseburger sliders. I think that was a good touch. It's amazing how many of these golfers. I'm going to sound like Brandon Adams here for a little bit. It's amazing how all these golfers that with all their, I guess I would say, all their culture and all their fanciness, when it comes to the champion dinner, they're not talking about a nice Brunello or a Bordello or a Beaujolais type of wine. Or they're usually trying to get some cheeseburgers on the menu or some barbecue or some. I'll tell you what. The one thing about Scotty Scheffler's Champions Dinner that had me going crazy was he had the skillet chocolate chip cookie, and he also had milk and cookies and cream ice cream with that. That's crazy. David Wayne Carroll, I think Georgia's one of those schools that's always going to be there in the mix for Cam. And he's told me that before, like one of those schools, the end game school that'll be there till the end will be there would be Georgia. Randy Hall, I think Georgia will still probably get the 5 offensive linemen in this class. I feel like they have to. It's funny, guys. I know I try to give you guys some synergy here with like, hey, what's going on with the recruiting classes are kind of linked with the depth chart and what's expected to happen. Guys, Georgia's going to lose 5 to 7 offensive linemen off this roster, whether it's some combination of the portal or some combination of spring exits or some combination after the season. And that's why Georgia needs to really load up again, even if it is a weak offensive line class. Another thing to consider here is, I wonder how many of you guys remember, Georgia has 3 really capable offensive linemen. They have 21 guys that came in early, enrolled as mid-years. But you remember Jamal Merriweather, remember Bo Hughley? Bo Hughley, by the way, is really working on his game a lot. I've seen some training film of him lately, and he's really gotten his game up a couple of notches where he's really focusing on his craft and focusing on working out with the right type of guys that can get him ready. Some of the guys that have gotten other former Georgia linemen ready as they enter Athens, that's what they've been able to do right there. And then also you've got Kelton Smith as well. 3 kind of big boys that are coming in and joining the Georgia program after they graduate high school. Randy Hall, I don't know if Sammy Brown is the strongest player in the 2024 group, but he is very strong. I mean, heck, Sammy Brown, did you see this? He's trying to get 400 clean on the power clean before the end of his junior year. And, one of the things that always come to my mind is once you get over 350 in power clean in high school, you're really something. Like you've ate your Wheaties, you are him, whatever you want to say. Popeye's eating his spinach or whatever. Like folks don't remember this, but like 300 now, we've seen Brock Vandegrift and we've seen Jacob Fromm power clean 300, 310 while they were in high school. And that's quarterbacks. But when you start getting guys up over 350, 360, where like Sammy Brown is right now. He is just not just country strong, he is Olympic weightlifter strong. Ethan Callaway, Kamel Oz brings up a good point. That's another big name, another huge offensive tackle out of Lake Norman area in Charlotte. That's another name to think about there as well. Tom Lavelle's giving an interesting commentary as well about good golf coverage there, Tom. Ridgefly bought some cheese from Kroger. Suzanne Akins, yeah, I certainly love the Cadbury eggs. The Whopper eggs, I think they're called the Robin eggs right now. Kamel Oz, for Amir, I think Georgia's always going to be right in there. In terms, I think with Georgia and Amir, it's going to be how much he feels prioritized would be the main thing there as well. Guys, it's been another Before the Hedges. Let's do this. We have had one of our trusted colleagues here, trusted staff members, Michael Carvel at Dog Nation. He's getting some well-deserved time off. He's a big fan of Augusta, big fan of the Masters as well. He always usually takes some time off right around the Masters. Of course, he's got a young family too and kids, and I don't know how he does it with keeping his sanity with lots of young kids as well. But pinch hitting, and she's doing a Lou Gehrig type job pinch hitting so far for us. I want you, everybody in the comment section, to just please say thank you, Kaylee. She ran our show tonight. That's why we did it from our house. But you want to talk about the rookie call up from AAA Richmond or maybe AA Durham, because she's got a great skill set of talent, but she's sitting in producing for us tonight and flawless, going without a hitch. Hope everybody could just take a minute and say thank you, Kaylee. Kaylee Mansell, one of our Dog Nation, been working with Dog Nation for a few weeks now. And you've seen her behind the camera. You've seen her in front of the camera on our Next Generation each and every week. Check out CJ Allen on all your social media channels as well. And we will also have another Next Generation episode this week and another Next Generation story with CJ Allen as well. Kind of putting that together right now as we talk about it. But Michael's still not taking time off. Look at that. The man never stops. But you guys are great. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Joel Moody, I liked your Reese's Cup to your round take right there, guys. It's been another edition of Before the Hedges. That's been your intel. I am Jeff Sentell. Thank you again, Miss Kaylee, for all your help this week on Before the Hedges, helping us run like 5 stars around here and let Michael have some time off with his family, or at least some time away from the studio with his family. Certainly appreciate you guys joining us. That's been your intel. I'm Jeff Sentell, and we'll see you guys again real soon on the pages of dognation.com. Be blessed, everybody. Have a great weekend, and I'll be watching the Masters with everybody as well.